Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Good Deeds Real Estate with a Mission. I'm Diane Davidson from the Fine Homes Group at Keller Williams. And I'm here with my partner, Bill Weidecker. Hello, Bill.
Hello there.
Today, we're talking about transparency and clarity as it regards real estate and some changes that have come down the pike as of basically yesterday in New Hampshire, yes?
Yes, and a lot of it has to do with the agreed upon settlement between the National Association of Realtors, several other large real estate companies, and plaintiffs back in the spring. And so this conversation was a news blip for about a week to 2 weeks, which in the news cycle is a long time. Mm-hmm. And then it's been sort of gone until, of course, these rules changes by our local multiple listing system. And so now it's back, at least in the forefront of everybody's mind that is a practitioner. So we thought this might be valuable to have this conversation with the consumers out there and give them a little bit of an idea as to what's going on.
And of course, if they're looking for details, they should contact a realtor.
Us.
This will be a Fine Homes Group realtor,
Us.
of course, but yes, exactly.
This is our podcast.
Say it one more time, us.
This is the opportunity for us to sing for our supper, and I don't believe, very selfishly, I don't believe anyone does it better. So why wouldn't we make that case?
They'd be in great hands. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is correct.
Okay.
So the words right in my mouth.
Mm-hmm. So we talk about just a few of the main differences, the changes going forward. Would that be the best thing to do to kind of inform listeners? And okay, go ahead then.
Well, you mentioned the word transparency, and I think as a result of the settlement, this is going to make it a little bit easier for people to understand the disposition of the realtor fees that are being paid by the consumers. And let's start by saying this. You know, there's this idea as to who in the past was paying our fee. It was an agreed upon seller paid commission, but without a buyer willing to buy the property at the agreed upon price, which included the commission rate, there was no sale. Mm-hmm. So it was this game of semantics as to who paid the fee. Well, now it's pretty clear. And the reason I say it's pretty clear is because it explains exactly, the new listing contracts explain this, exactly how much is being paid by the seller to the listing agent, by the seller to a buyer agent if they want, or not. I saw I subscribed to some polling agency, and the consumers were asked whether or not they liked their buyer agent after closing upon a house. Loved them. And they were also asked, how much did you pay them? And they said, I don't know if I paid them anything. The majority of people weren't sure. Now, when you think about it, there are varying degrees of intelligence out there, and you can imagine when you take all the consumers that were in this study, some might have understood it better than others, but the majority of them didn't understand it at all. That's the fee was included in the seller paid concessions on behalf of the buyer agent.
Right, distributed from the sale price.
They had no idea what it was.
Yep.
And so I believe now when we say transparency, now it's going to be clear between the real estate agent and their buyer client and the real estate agent and their seller client as to the disposition of those fees.
Okay. So we have a few procedural changes, really, and I think some silver linings. I've shared my favorite one before, but I'm going to share it again with your permission.
Go ahead.
Okay. So veterans, who I think we both agree and all of us would agree, deserve the dream of home ownership probably as more than anybody in our country, right? That's why we
Yeah, there's no one that deserves to be represented than a veteran, in my opinion.
Correct. And so the VA, Veterans Administration, for many years prohibited veteran borrowers when they were taking advantage of VA financing, which in many cases is 100% financing. They were prohibited from paying for representation, paying a buyer agent. Mm-hmm. And so they either got to see houses where that compensation was offered by the seller, or and so that he was covered, or they would forego seeing those houses. They were sometimes trading selection for representation and vice versa. Mm-hmm. shortly after this proposed settlement, before it was ratified in April, the Veterans Administration moved very quickly, and government agencies are not known for that, and they changed the rule and they allowed veterans to pay for that representation, so they could see everything that was on the market and be represented through that process. And I think that's huge. And that all came out of this settlement. So I think that's a wonderful, wonderful silver lining here. Another one is that in all 50 states, agents must have an agreement signed with the buyer before they show a home. And I just think for security alone, I mean, when we hear the horror stories, they don't happen often, but they do, where agents put themselves in perilous situations by meeting strangers at properties and showing that property. So I think there are a lot of just sort of higher levels of practice that come out of this that are, that have little to do with the transparency that everybody was looking for, but, a collateral improvement.
Well, now it comes down to this. No matter who that realtor is, if there's a buyer out there looking for a home and working with a realtor, they've got to do so with a written agreement, which really is the ultimate description of transparency. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't required in all 50 states. And we need not go any further than the state of Massachusetts,
exactly
where buyers could be represented by realtors as their buyer agent with no written agreement.
Right. So no expectations.
Implied agency.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't think of a more disturbing way to do business. You don't know what I'm going to promise to do for you, and you have no way of holding me to something that I never agreed to.
Correct. Yep.
Kooky.
It is. Primitive.
Well.
Yeah.
And kooky.
And kooky. Kooky primitive or primitively kooky?
Yeah. So, my feeling in all of this is there will be, I had this conversation with another realtor, and I said, listen, best practices come out of many practices. So we don't get to figure out the best solutions until we go through many solutions. Mm-hmm. We might guess right as an industry, but my feeling is we're going to I'm glad that the New Hampshire Association of Realtors and the multiple listing system Prime MLS have kind of worked hand in hand with this a month before the settlement rules go into effect, because we're getting a little bit of a jump start.
Absolutely.
You get a couple of free rolls here before the game really begins. And I think that's really good. And let's also keep in mind, all of these rule changes, even in August, are prior to the settlement being ratified by the judicial system. So that's kind of crazy where you go, well, how come we have to practice a certain way before it's actually ratified? It's an order like in class action suits. All of the people in the class have to opt in by such and such a date. And then from that point forward, they can't opt in. And from that point forward, we operate under the new guidelines. So while I think change is bumpy, I think you've already outlined some silver linings. I think there's going to be more to come.
I agree.
And better practice makes better business.
Yep. And people have said it's evolution, not revolution. Mm-hmm. But really, it's time. It was time. It was time to have more clarity and more transparency. And I would just say that, if you've been thinking about buying or thinking about selling, and this seems sort of overwhelming or ominous, and frankly, if you're an agent, not even on our team, and you need some clarity around it, we're here. We've been delving into this and understanding it for quite a long time. And before it was even a settlement, or before it was a proposed settlement in March. And so we feel very equipped to explain it to our clients, our future clients, and other people in the industry.
Yeah, I do believe that there are those that will have a hard time explaining it. Mm-hmm. And so they will shy away from trying to explain it and just sort of say, all you got to really do is cover my fee and don't worry about anything else. And so that's akin to explaining to a potential seller, why it's in their best interest to do some work to a property beforehand.
Yep.
Because they might invest $5,000 in order to get $25,000 back. As an agent, you kind of have an obligation of reasonable care and loyalty to the client to make sure they understand it. So shying away from the discussion because it's confusing early on might be a role that some professionals take. And I would say, you know, own up to the fact that you got to get all the knowledge as best you can early on, so you can explain it to your clients.
Right, impart that knowledge. So, if anybody's interested, let's talk real estate. Right?
Yes, I like these buttons because they're sort of they're agnostic to any brand out there, but it does bring about conversations, and we're open to conversations at any time.
I forget I'm wearing it sometimes, and people say, "Oh, are you a realtor?" And I think,
how would you know?
Are you a psychic? Anyway, I guess that's enough for now. But seriously, people should reach out if they have any questions, and we will be nothing but forthright and informative.
Yes,
we're embracing the change. So, thank you as always for sticking with us. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to our YouTube channel.